Hello, everybody. Welcome to Wholehearted Loving. I'm Stephanie.
Hi, I'm Georgiana.
Today we are going to be talking about attraction and how that shifts in alignment with our desires, our conscious and unconscious desires. If you would like a journal prompt for this episode and for every episode, you can find those on our Instagram at Wholehearted Loving. And before we get started, we are going to do a body-based self-connection practice to connect with ourselves before we connect with each other and this podcast. And today's practice is going to be pretty simple, and you can do it wherever you are. You might be sitting or standing or walking. Just take a moment to check in with your body. If you've got some physical connection with ground or chair, notice your bum or your feet and just spend a second with that connection. And I want you to notice and ask yourself the question, how could I be 1% more comfortable right now? Gigi, what do you notice?
I noticed that I wanted to shift my glasses. That would make me more comfortable. And then I closed my eyes, and that also made me more comfortable. And then I leaned forward and I tilted my head.
That's great. Mm-hmm. See how tiny these shifts can be. Mm-hmm. But if you combine together, say 100, I don't think it would actually work out this way. 101% more comfortable shifts, you would be 100% more comfortable. Something like that.
Is that how the math works? Math is not my strong suit.
Me neither. But it accrues in some way or other. You can definitely always increase your comfort level. And while doing that, your connection with your body. Just by asking yourself that simple question and then taking some tiny action. Like I took my hairband was wrapped around my thumb. I thought that's just the tiniest bit tight. I could remove that.
Yeah. So can you repeat the question again so people know what it is to practice asking themselves more often?
Yeah. How could I be 1% more comfortable in this moment?
Mm-hmm. And I like that you asked me what I noticed, and I shared with you really subtle shifts, really subtle noticings. Because sometimes when we're asked the question, how could I be more comfortable? Or we ask ourselves that, I think, oh, does it mean I need to get up and get a drink and grab 5 blankets and, sit in a totally different chair? And sometimes it can mean that. And it doesn't have to mean that. Right? It can mean right now I feel something here, and I feel that if I moved my hair out of the way here, I would feel better. Mm-hmm. Or I could have ignored it and just felt this annoying sensation here and just tried to be present with you while dealing with that.
Right.
That's not comfortable.
It's not comfortable. Yeah. And I really love this one for when we're in situations that are specifically uncomfortable and possibly unchangeable. Like you're, trapped in a cubicle for 12 hours in an uncomfortable chair and you have to be there. Then you can add in these tiny bits. And I think it lets your body know that you have its back, that your comfort is a priority to you and that you're going to do what you can. I think it builds self-trust, and it also builds the ability to notice comfort and discomfort and to seek more of either one.
Totally. And it sort of symbolically lets us know my comfort matters to me. Yeah. Right. And, this, as you were talking, it reminded me of, and I've spoken about this before, but I don't know if it was in this context, but maybe it was. On the plane when it's landing and it's shaking, the whole plane is shaking. And I noticed it just naturally was this is an uncomfortable feeling for my body. And obviously I can't do anything about the plane shaking when it lands. So I remember noticing I would like to be able to push on something. So I placed one hand on my body and I would just push. And when I first did, I would push on the seat in front of me. But then lately I realized, well, that pushes the other person's chair. So I don't actually want to do that. So I think my last couple flights, I just pushed on the wall of the plane, like the window frame. And like just that pushing sensation made, like, it sort of drowned out that acute awareness of this big shaky sensation of the plane
Yes.
landing.
Diffusing your focus, right? Adding something else in addition.
Yeah. So that makes a huge difference. I wanted to comment on this because about physical comfort. Like, yes, there's emotional comfort and like there's physical comfort. I was raised to believe that you need to sit a certain way and you need to like hold your pencil a certain way and you need to like not tap your feet because all of that speaks to, I don't know, unintelligence and not being classy and God knows what else, a misbehaving child or something. And so for me, it's so liberating now to really just follow my own body of how do I want to sit. Like often when we're sitting in chairs, like it's not comfortable for me. Like if I can sit cross-legged on a chair, I'm so much happier. My body is so much happier. I can be so much more present with you. But like those are things that, as if kids did that, you know, especially back when we were kids, you'd be like, sit properly. You know, that's what you'd hear. And like if you saw adults doing that now, you'd probably be like, what's wrong with that person? But like, who cares how someone's sitting, you know? So I've really given myself permission to sit in ways that are comfortable for me. We've talked about this a lot of like me noticing, especially my older one, in these weird body positions on the couch, like draped over the bed, doing everyday things, but not in a body position that the world conditions us to think is proper. But he just knows like this feels better for my body. And I find myself doing the same thing of like, I will laugh sometimes at the positions I end up being in while I'm working or talking on the phone or whatever, because they make my body feel better. And it's not sitting in the chair and it's not sitting on a couch like people do, like people expect you to.
Yeah. Go with that for sure. Okay, so attractions. I wanted to talk about this because I think people will relate to it. I think there can be a lot of confusion for people around who or what they find attractive or who or what they think they should find attractive. And, you know, there's all this talk of red flags and high value, this and that. And, you know, then there's what's actually happening in your body and your mind. And I think that's where it's worthwhile putting a good amount of noticing attention. So for a little context, I haven't been in a long-term relationship in like, I think it's now 7 years. And there've been like dalliances and like small scale boyfriend things in the interim. But that felt more like sort of practice. Like I was learning myself and what felt good and what it felt like to be pursued, which can just be, can I say, completely intoxicating and can completely blind a person to what they actually want and need and desire and what feels good for them. And I've certainly had that experience too. Anyway, I hit this kind of dead zone like a year, maybe 2 years ago, where I just thought, I'm never going to be attracted to anyone ever again. And that had almost become fine with me, except for moments when it really wasn't. And, you know, I'd be sad, but then I'd be like, it's fine, I'll get a cat. It's fine. But I still have no cat and I still have no man. And that really is fine. But so the thing that happened was that I encountered this man and I felt one of the thoughts I had was that this man was an angel. And I mean that in like a very spiritual, metaphysical sense. He struck me as the Archangel Gabriel, to be specific. And I felt attracted to him and something came like alive and I was excited. I was like, oh, I feel attracted to this man. That's so nice. Like, yay. I haven't died inside and something.
It's a good feeling to realize that we haven't died inside. I remember when I was like, what is this? Is my heart waking up?
Yeah.
It
What is
still
this?
works. I remember talking to you. It still works.
Oh, yeah, totally. And the rest of the body too, by the way.
Yeah.
Many things are related. So I started privately in my mind thinking of this man as my husband, and I made up a name for him and called him my whatever husband in my mind.
I started privately in my mind making him my husband. That's a really good quote. I like it.
It was a very small ceremony of just me in my own mind. Um, and then I saw him. We're in some group on Facebook where we're in the same group, so I can see his posts, although we're not Facebook friends. And I didn't know, there was no picture identifying him, but I just noticed this post had been written in a way that my eyes identify as being ranty. And that does not feel good to me, which is also interesting because in the past, if it was a righteous rant, I would have been on board with that. I would have been like, oh yeah, like let me comment about this, let me get angry with you, like all these sorts of things. But instead, my instinct was just to sort of roll my eyes and keep scrolling. But something else subconscious caught my eye, and it was the name. And I was like, oh my gosh, is that my husband? So I clicked through to find a picture, and it was indeed my husband. And in the past, I might have started justifying why this no feeling for me could be ignored because I feel so attracted physically to this guy.
Yeah.
But instead, I was just like, oh, he's my ex-husband now.
Oh,
This is the least expensive divorce on earth. Really
quickest turnaround.
Yeah. But then I started thinking of him as my ex-husband.
So, did you consummate this marriage in your mind, the privacy of your mind as
I
well?
actually didn't.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Could have been
I
annulled.
still could. Maybe like a G-rated, consummation. No, isn't that funny? Because in the past, I probably would have had different fantasies. Right now, they're very like sweet and like snuggling and like holding hands and things like
Right.
that.
Okay.
Yeah. I really want a man to kiss me on the forehead, like that sort of thing. Very sweet. And definitely not what I would have been thinking about a few years ago. But so,
Well, in
okay,
any case, you're divorced now.
we're divorced now. So, okay, that was entirely my point. So as I thought about this, I realized that there are actually 3 men I've been attracted to. So I thought I was just dead inside, but in fact, there's been some activity, right? And I was fascinated by the way that this had shifted because I still feel physically and energetically, well, I'll put a pin in that. Physically attracted, we'll start with. But the first guy this happened with, I felt physically attracted, and from his demeanor and language and like style, I'm going to say, like of speech, of dress, of behavior, I could tell that it was a no. It was like, oh, in the past, I would have been very interested in this guy. And it would have brought up all my like tough girl stuff. And like, we would have connected on that level of being really like tough and cool and trying to impress each other.
Yep.
And now this time I just noticed, oh, I like, my eyes like him and nothing else does.
That's such a big, important discernment.
Yes.
My eyes like him and nothing else does.
Yeah.
We could get ourselves out of a lot of problematic things if we honored that it's just my eyes that like this person.
Yeah, totally. Well, and in the past, I would have needed all of those other factors in order to be attracted to a person. This tough, cool tattoo thing, like whatever, all the accoutrements of that, I would have needed to find someone attractive. My now ex-husband doesn't have those things. Like he's a much more of a gentle presentation. But then he's still got that undercurrent of like, it's not displaced anger because the anger is valid, but it's anger that I find to be very mundane and like not a good use of energy. You know, like fighting the good fight is great for some people and just not for me. I'm like, let's get on with the fact of our simple living, you know? So I saw him the other day, my ex-husband, and I thought, oh my God, I'm so attracted to him. And then he sat down and we talked for a while. And I was increasingly attracted to him for the first few minutes. You know, it was a nice conversation. But it went on for a while, and a lot of facts about his life came out and the ways he, you know, spends his time. And I was just like, this sounds like a horrible hellscape to me. I can't imagine becoming involved with this in any way. And definitely in the past, I would have been like, how can I like twist myself around for this to feel good and be fine? And like, oh yeah, I could live that way. I'm like, no, I have no desire to live that way.
Yeah.
And this was happening in real time as I was thinking, oh no, like, am I attracted to you because you're totally wrong for me? Or is it just a physical thing? But either way, it's neat to notice that as you're talking, I feel very attracted to you and very aware that I would never want to explore such a thing, you know? And then the third, briefly, is a very different genre than the rest. There's none of that tough guy thing, very soft, kind of like manly, but soft, not trying to impress anyone in any way, and very physically attracted, but demonstrating things like not being reliable, someone you can't really count on.
Right.
And that's enough for me to just be like, oh, like I don't want to experience that for even a second. Why would I add optional unreliability into my life?
So I'm having a little chuckle here because I know, you know, some things about your history in relationships. And now you can so clearly say, like, if you're not reliable, I'm not, like, that's not it for me. Whereas I'm like, there's been some mass unreliability in past relationships that seem to not matter that much, right? And I'm speaking also for myself.
If they're reliably unreliable, does that count?
I think it's really special to notice that as we get to know ourselves better, as we learn to honor our truest desires more and more, we notice that who and what we're attracted to, not just in an intimate partnership, but just in life in general, it shifts.
It shifts. And what I really want people to notice is the difference between noticing what you desire, I don't know quite how to say this, as opposed to what you don't desire, or framing it in that way. I hear a lot of women, especially older women, I guess I'm now an older woman, who are just like, oh, I don't need any of that in my life. I'm fine by myself. You know, I don't need a man because I'm fine by myself. I'm like, well, you can not need a man and you can be fine by yourself, and you might desire a few things. You know, what about instead of warding against badness, welcoming in goodness? You know, instead of saying you don't want a whole bunch of things, just pay attention to some of the things that feel nice to you and see if that arises.
And I think of my old self, my past self. I didn't know how to orient really to like a consistent flow of good things. I was very captured by an occasional sprinkle of good things.
Right.
And so to notice that that is not what I'm attracted to now, I think sometime in the last year, I've said this to you, but also to another friend. I'm like, you know, consistency and clarity is very attractive. Whereas my old self spent so much like time, energy, heartache, like trying to chase people who like were not consistent and not clear in any way, but were very good at offering occasional crumbs. And my type of attraction, like apart from a few very distinct people in my life, but I noticed there was a pattern of I was just attracted to who chose me. And I see this, you know, I talk with clients a lot about this. They're like, oh yeah, like I just like whoever chooses me.
Being chosen is intoxicating.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, that's what I meant.
And have never really put much thought into what is my deepest desire. What are the qualities of a person that I feel attracted to, right? I'll ask that question a lot to people when they describe the relationships they're in, or the people they're dating, or the people they're contemplating dating. And I'll just ask them, like, can I ask you a really blunt question? Sure, okay. Does that light you up to be around that energy? Does that light you up to imagine being with a partner who behaves that way, handles things that way? And what's interesting is they all have such a clear answer. They're in like a little bit of resistance sometimes in the beginning, but the answer is always clear. They're like, well, no.
But I would accept it if forced to.
Right. And I think as we were talking about this episode, I think what came up was noticing like certain qualities and certain things we might be attracted to in someone or a job or a circumstance. And then also noticing the other things that are not aligned, and like taking the full picture into account before we choose what we invest our time and energy into and who we let into our space.
Mm-hmm. Totally. I think there's also a lot of conditioning around good and bad feelings. And this is where we can all insert our own ego drama into relationship and outcomes in relationships. And it's pretty common for people to find stability and consistency boring, right? Because they're accustomed to things being a bit less predictable, maybe having to fight for something. And I want to point out here how baked in that is to the culture. And the example I'll use is stories. This is true in movies and books and TV shows. They're broken down into scenes and beats. And the rule of writing is that something good needs to happen, then something bad needs to happen, then something good, then something bad, and good and bad, and good and bad, until you end on whatever genre it's meant to be. If it's a feel good, it ends good. If it's something else, it ends bad, right? Mm-hmm. And so we're just accustomed to this, and we think it's normal. And I would really ask listeners if that feels good for you. Mm-hmm. Does the bad stuff actually feel good? Or is this a conditioned response that you do not desire in your life?
Yeah. Conditioned in like what we're exposed to in media. Also conditioned in our family of origins, right? If peace and calm and abundance of like a welcoming energy and an acceptance kind of energy was your normal, then you probably wouldn't go for this in and out, back and forth, all sorts of confusion, right? But if there was tension and confusion, and sometimes things are good and sometimes things are hard and sometimes things are unpredictable, that's what we're going to subconsciously look for in relationship and call that excitement. When, people who view things through the attachment lens will say, well, that's your attachment alarm going off, right? If it's too consistent, nothing's going off. It's not exciting, right? But if you've lived your whole life with an attachment alarm going off, that feels normal, and everything else feels dead and boring.
Yeah. Right. And you probably got a good sense of what good feels like, but don't know how to make that happen, don't know how to translate it into everyday behavior. You'll be pleased to know that I'm on season 2 of MILF Manor.
Oh, wow. And, there's season 2.
There is a season 2. It's apparently a current program. I'll soon need to wait for episodes to come out, which is a horrible feeling, a bad feeling. But these women are often saying, I mean, everybody's always saying, I just want to feel good. I just want to feel peaceful. I just want all of these simple things. And then the behaviors don't, they belie the fact that actually not feeling good has been the norm. Feeling in a heightened state of stress and dysregulation and uncertainty is the norm. So that's what we're going to default to. We might consciously desire to feel good and to feel peaceful, but nothing in our body is wired to allow that to happen.
Yeah. And this is why I think we're so passionate about doing this in our own lives for ourselves, but also sharing it with people of like, how do you learn to orient to easeful, harmonious, abundance of good feeling, kindness, pleasure, comfort, clarity, because once we become familiar with it, we start to feel safety in it. We start to crave it. you become the creator and the protector of it, the curator and the protector of that experience. And I remember I worked so hard getting over a past breakup that just really destroyed me on so many levels. And I was able to finally feel peace, like within, about myself, in my body, where I was at in life, a peacefulness of like, I don't need to be in a relationship to know that I'm a good person worthy of being loved and accepted. And then, of course, this person would show up again in my life and give me lots of opportunities to be pulled by that attraction of nostalgia, of chemistry, of, whatever. And I would have to remind myself, like, I worked really hard for this piece. I am not going to toss it out the window, right? If I engage with you, I already know where it's going to go, or at least it's going to start going there, and I'm going to have to rein it back in because I don't really want to go there. I know what you have to offer, and it's not in alignment with what I need. But like, I went through so many cycles of, okay, let's just toss out the little piece that I managed to restore, and like just throw it out in the hopes that this part of me that does feel attraction to you, like, can just dismiss all the other parts that feel like this is off and wrong.
That is such a muscle to build as well. I think all of these practices we do that help build self-connection and self-trust and self-protection led you to that place of being able to pause in the moment and remember yourself and have your own back. This another thing you hear on MILF Manor and all of the shows and all of life is people saying like, oh, this is my old pattern, and I know I shouldn't be doing this, but like, they're so hot, off I go. And it's like, well, get ready for more of the same then, and if you haven't rewired things to remind yourself that you have your own back and to give yourself some evidence of that, then falling into old patterns just makes perfect sense.
Yeah. And like, I just want to say, like, if you want to go back and follow an old pattern, you can, and you don't have to shame yourself or feel bad about it. I certainly did many, many times. And I also want to acknowledge this. Some people, I think, are just wired, either just wired naturally, or they've grown a really strong muscle to be like cold turkey. No, like, that's a harmful pattern. I'm aware of it now. I'm not doing it anymore.
My mom's like that.
I was never wired like that. I was like, let me put my hand in the fire 15 more times to really make sure that's not a good choice. Right? Like with certain things, like with drugs, I was like, no, I'm not even going to try because I bet it's going to feel so good. I'm going to want to go back over and over. But on an emotional thing, I'm like, oh, there's a chance here that I could be loved. Let me just try. Yeah. Surely I could change you. Right. Surely I can do something to make you stay. I could just be so nice and so helpful and so sweet that you would stay and get over all of your intimacy issues. Yeah. And let's do that 15 more times, even though every time it still hurts. Yeah. And so I always try to remind people, like, let's not shame ourselves for it. And let's also face reality, right? In that you're probably going to feel gross again really soon.
Yeah, totally.
Right. And I don't say that to people, but like, they come up with that themselves. They're like, yeah, I can see that if I go with that, I'll probably feel good for the first 3 days and then feel horrible about myself. And I feel horrible again because that person is not offering up what I need and want. Yeah. And sometimes we are wired to need to do that many more times before the universe. Remember, someone said to us, I think they said to both of us, but with the universe whispers first, and then it gets louder, and then it gets louder, and then if you really don't listen, it's going to hit you with a cosmic 2x4. And I remember universe presenting me with like situations that were so dire that I'm like, oh, you saw that I could not get myself out of this situation, so you're going to make it so dire that I basically feel like I have no other choice. So okay, I guess it's time now.
Yes, it's clear when it's time when that happens, for sure.
Yeah. And like, I it saddens me when people think, oh, I wasted so much of my life, or, like, why didn't I make a better decision sooner? And just really want to acknowledge that, like, the desire to be chosen and to be met is strong. and that some of us have a different path in how we learn these lessons, a different timing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not a time wasted. It's a time spent learning and getting the tools we needed. I firmly believe that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Gigi.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else you'd like to say before we do a closing practice?
About attraction. I really liked using the prompt, what lights you up? Do you know what lights you up? And like be detailed, right? When I ask people, okay, so what are the qualities of someone, if we're talking partnership, what are the qualities of someone that really lights you up? And then we go deeper. Like, how would they be with you if you were sad or excited or mad or made a mistake? What would light you up in those situations? How would they be with your excitement? Right? How would they be when someone's not being kind to you? Right? And if we're willing to ask myself, what would light me up? Like, what would be like the most beautiful way someone could be with me in that? That all of a sudden connects you to desire.
Yeah, totally.
Right? Yeah.
And to yourself, right? That's an expression of self-understanding and self-honoring that I think is so beautiful and can easily get overlooked in the writing of lists, which I know women do. Maybe men do it too. I don't know, where they write down lists of things their future partners must have, be, or do. And I would love for those lists to include things like, how are they going to be with you when you're sad?
Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you, Gigi.
You're welcome.
Okay. Do you have a closing practice in mind?
The closing practice is something that's naturally happening is making circles, whatever that means to you. Noticing how it feels to make circles. My circles turned into ovals. And it's interesting because I think you and I have a similar way of making circles, but like you could make circles in so many different ways.
Hula hooping.
Hula hooping. Oh yeah, we were going to hula hoop together at some point.
Oh, you mentioned that. Yeah, I still haven't seen a hula hoop anywhere. And why are we making circles, Gigi?
Because it felt nice to.
Great reason.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
It does feel nice too. My spine on the uncomfortable chair feels 1% more comfortable making circles.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I like it.
All right. Well,
okay.
We'll keep making circles and we'll see you guys next week. Thank you guys for being here. And as always, please do like, follow, and subscribe. And if anything we've said here today has been helpful for you, please share with somebody that you care about. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.